Welcome to the BS Show, the gaming news podcast where we ditch your sugarcoating and give it to you straight. I'm Blake.
And I'm Steve.
And if you're looking for real talk without the BS, you've come to the right place. Before we jump in, don't forget to stay connected with us. Follow us on X at the BS Show GG for our latest updates and hot takes. Check out our YouTube channel at the BS Show GG and be sure to hit that subscribe button. We're also on TikTok at the BS Show GG throughout the week, so make sure to stop on by and say what's up. Love what you're hearing? Show your support by liking this episode, dropping a comment with your thoughts, and subscribing to keep up with all our featured content. This week we focus on the overall state of MMOs, Riot's MMO, and the new MMO Corepunk. Alright, let's cut to the BS and get into today's episode. Welcome everyone to the BS Show. Hope everyone's had a great week and had a fantastic Thanksgiving. So, before we kind of hop into the games we've been playing, Steve, how was your Thanksgiving with your family?
It was good. I had to work the next day pretty early, so I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time. Went out to my mom's place and kind of just hung out with her and my sisters for a little bit, and then came back home and did some cooking for a potluck I had the next day at work. What about you?
So, well, who made the turkey for you guys? Was it your mom or your dad?
No. So my mom does all the cooking.
Yeah. I was thinking about this last night because I wanted to talk about that. Do you remember when we were younger? I think it was your mom made like a shit ton of burgers for us. Like I remember your mom making like bomb ass food when we were kids.
Yeah. My mom's always really liked to cook, and that's like one of her favorite things to do. She loves to cook. Always making like a bunch of food. Like every time I go over, I end up coming home with like so much food. Like it's just like I have food for like weeks when I go to her place.
Send some to me, please. So it was just my mom and my stepdad John came over. So it was me, Megan, my daughter, and them. And I was thinking DJ and his girlfriend and maybe they were gonna come over, but they weren't able to because it was kind of last minute. But yeah, I ended up smoking a turkey and. Dude, I made like 8 different sides for 5 people, 4 adults, and like I still have so much leftovers in my fridge. Like it's probably never gonna get eaten. So yeah. So besides that, man. So what games have you been playing this past week?
So I've really just been playing hardcore WoW. It's been such a blast. I died Friday night, I believe. I was 25. Me and a buddy kind of went into a pretty sketchy zone and ended up dying and restarted back to level 16. And I was able to get you to kind of start playing too. What have been your thoughts so far with with hardcore WoW?
So I was actually surprised with how much I liked it. I mean, even after dying twice, which I mean, once of those was because you overpulled in that cave.
No. Let's get this clear. It was 100% you just running straight without looking, and you pulled 6 of them back into us and forcing us to run.
Yeah, what about the second one? The second pull, you kept pulling all those mobs.
Well, the second one we were already dead. I was just trying to run out the cave.
No. Second one, dude, you pulled like 80 of them, dude. We were fine. I was chilling, and you kept pulling.
No. We were not chilling. We were 100% dead. We had like 6 or 7 of them on us, and I was just hoping maybe I got lucky and didn't get hit, and I was able to run out of the cave. But yeah, it kind of slowed you down. Yeah, it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare for sure.
Yeah, so like besides that, like I don't know, it's cool. Like with hardcore classic, like you really have to think about like how big of a pull you're making, and like you can't just spam abilities because like as we saw, as I was healing myself and not you. I was running out of mana like super freaking fast, and it's like you really have to think about what you're doing. It's not like retail where you can go in and I mean you could spam your damage, you could spam your healing with really no thought behind it. Dude, what I also do love, man, is it really has like that nostalgic feeling. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it. I think I've told you like over and over, it's like I just can't get into class. I just played it for a minute or two and I couldn't get into it. But we played a crap ton last time. We played for like 4 hours, and it was like it just brought me back to old WoW. You're getting like almost like immersed in the world. I mean, yeah, we had to use a couple add-ons to figure out where the quests are and stuff like that. But what I think the best part of it is like it's not a race to get max level. Like, yeah, you want to get max level, but instead you're just enjoying, the leveling progression and that pace that hardcore sets. And I'm really looking forward to hitting 60. But
and one of the really nice things too, it's you learn after every single like if you end up dying a bunch of times, you kind of learn after each death, and when you get back to that area, you kind of know it's like, okay, I need to make sure I'm doing this first before I go here. And I think that's why I was kind of like, when I was telling you like this is how I would level, and it was more so just because like I kind of learned as I was leveling that this is like the best route to kind of follow, because it just makes the whole process so much easier. And the harder it is, like it can get so sketchy, but you're right. It's just such an enjoyable process, and I love it. I've been
heart racing, dude. Some of the things, like I think I was streaming it yesterday, and I had to kill those headhunter trolls, and I made it out with 1 HP, and like just running away, trying not to freaking die, dude. It's like exhilarating when you overpull that crap, and you're like, oh shit, how do I get out of here without dying?
And it's crazy because if you kind of think about like retail WoW or like MMOs in general, like when is the last time you've kind of had an experience like this with leveling, where the leveling actually matters? The leveling is actually difficult. You kind of have become so accustomed to like you're kind of like a god in the beginning. Like if you log on to retail WoW and you start a level 1 character, you're just gonna one shot every single thing. And I don't remember the last time I had to sit down and eat food or drink to regain.
You gotta do it like after every little pull.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I don't even remember the last time I died to a mob or anything. I've died to raid mechanics or maybe like a mythic mechanic, but I can't really think or remember the last time I died from pulling two NPCs.
So what would you say like is like how would you compare it to retail?
I think it's actually more enjoyable. Like, so, okay, you know me, PvP is my biggest thing, but it's like I actually, again, I haven't always PvP'd with WoW. Back in the day I did, the just leveling and, dungeons and stuff like that. Like, I think that Classic has just a stigma around it, like, oh, it's not retail. It's kind of like, the newest Call of Duty comes out, and it's like, why am I going to play, MW3 when Black Ops 6 just came out? But I think if people can, like, overlook, like, it's not retail, I think they would actually enjoy Classic more. And it's even more, dude, it's like, it's fun seeing all those people questing. Like, we talked about that with Throne and Liberty, how you enjoyed being in the major cities and it just felt lively. Like, that's how it is in Classic. Like, in retail, there really is no purpose to be in the major cities. You got your warband bank. I mean, you got mounts that have auction houses on them. Like, retail, I think, took that social aspect out of it, and Classic, and especially Hardcore, brings that back, and I love it. I think it's a lot better. Like, I think I was telling you, I don't even know if I can go back to retail. I might, with you, like, go back when the new season comes out. But like, the only thing that sucks is, like, I hate the dying. Like, I hate having to restart. I think maybe I would enjoy regular Classic more, but again, that hardcore aspect just makes it so much different.
Yeah, like for me, I wasn't a big fan of regular Classic. I think it's just it's a completely different game, and I'm so accustomed to the way World of Warcraft is. It's not as grindy. I think Classic is just like the biggest grind, and I know when it initially came out, there was no add-ons, so trying to figure out how to do everything by just reading the quest dialogue and everything else, and kind of getting a general idea of where you're supposed to go, what you're supposed to pick up. Like, it's incredibly, incredibly difficult and incredibly grindy. And again, like, for me, it wasn't necessarily the thing that I necessarily enjoyed, but hardcore kind of added a level of difficulty that just made it a lot more enjoyable, because now it's like, okay, you have to actually think about like what you're doing. You're not just necessarily just mindlessly auto attacking and hitting an ability every once in a while. You're really having to think about every single little thing you do.
Yeah, dude, I enjoyed it, and what's cool too is, I mean, again, I kind of like the slower leveling, and I think they do need add-ons and stuff like that. Like, I wish that they had the quest logs and where to go. I think that's a really good idea. I wish that they would have had that in the game without having to use add-ons. But I guess too, like, there's a lot of feedback from the community talking about MMOs and stuff like that, and what's wrong with them today. And like the biggest thing is like they're way too easy. Leveling is a breeze. Progression doesn't even really feel like progressing. And in classic and especially hardcore, one, leveling is not a breeze. I mean, we played for how many hours, and I think I'm at level 9 right now. Again, I did die twice, but like your progression is actually progressing, because it's like I know we're not at max level, but when we get max level or as we do dungeons, like, you're progressing by not dying, going through the dungeons or being able to do the raids. Because like, again, in retail, it's like, okay, you die, you wipe, whatever, you have a million times you can and run that same raid or dungeon over. But in this, you can't. So you really, it just brings that feeling of progression back to the game.
And I think a really good thing too, that I guess not a lot of MMOs do a good job of this nowadays. It's kind of finding a balance between vertical gameplay and horizontal gameplay. I think most are kind of stuck on that vertical gameplay loop where it's like you're getting stronger every single time, and then eventually you're going to get to a point where all the gear and all the stuff that you did, and whether it's like a new raid comes out, by the time you get the gear for the next raid, the previous raid is just obsolete. Like, there's no reason for you to even ever go back to any of those old raids or old dungeons, because you're just gonna out level them by a lot. So it kind of ruins that aspect of the game where it's like old content just becomes irrelevant. And I think one of the really cool things about Classic is it was a lot more of like a horizontal gameplay loop. It's like, yeah, once you get max level, you're not doing these lower level dungeons, but you're still able to kind of progress, and your gear is still good up until even like you log off and you log back in a year later, your gear is still going to be good. Yeah. If you do that in retail, if you log off and you're gone for a year, like, you're going to be the max level is going to be like 100 item level above where you're at now. So you're going to have to grind a bunch just to kind of catch back up, and it's going to be kind of pointless in that sense. And that, I think that's what a lot of people really enjoy about some of these games like this. Like, RuneScape does a really good job of this as well. It's like your gear is always good. You're able to go into whatever dungeon raid, and no matter what, like, you're never really out leveling that specific content.
Yeah, well, I mean, WoW has like how many different tiers of sets that you've had to accumulate over the years, and each year the set is better than the previous, previous one. One thing I did want to ask you about too, because another thing that they were talking about was people aren't fans of metas. Do you think that there's like a meta in Classic? I know you were saying like Paladin is like easy mode, but do you think that in Classic and Hardcore Classic, like, there's really a meta, or is it just like, no, you can really play what you want?
I think you can play what you want, especially because some of these, especially if you're going for like end game, if your whole point is you want to raid, then there's the raid groups are so big that you can kind of bring everything. Like, you're not limited to how many classes or what classes you're bringing necessarily. Like, if you're looking at like a raid composition in retail, like, especially if you're pushing for like World First or whatever, like they have very specific characters and classes that they're bringing, very specific comps. If you look at PvP, like, very specific comps that you're bringing in, like, you don't want to DR too much between each other. You want classes that play well together, that you can kind of do damage around the same time.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the shitty thing. It's like it depletes like what characters you can and can't play. But again, like, hardcore is such a different gameplay loop that you can honestly play it and just get to 60, and that's your game right there. Like, you don't necessarily even really have to do much outside of that. Like, you can enjoy just getting up to 60, and it'll still provide you maybe like 70, 80 hours of game time without even, and that's if you don't die. Then if you die, then just kind of adds more on top of that and more on top of that. And then, That's kind of like the beauty of hardcore. And again, like that's the beauty of an MMO in general. It's like it provides you different options, and it's kind of unlimited to what you can do. If you want to PvP, you can PvP. If all you want to do is collect stuff and grind for mounts or rare gear, you can do that. If you want to raid, you can raid. If you want to do dungeons, you can do dungeons. If you want to RP, you can RP. Like that's why I love MMOs. It's like unlimited amounts of things you can do.
Well, do you think like when it's going kind of back on like the meta thing, do you think that like having metas is an okay thing, or do you think it kind of ruins it? Because I mean, we saw like the huge decline in Mythic Dungeons ran, and a lot of people were talking about how they didn't want to play because, again, if you weren't playing the best classes, you weren't invited. Do you think that having a meta is okay, or do you think it should be like Classic where every class can, participate and all that?
That's kind of like it's hard because whenever there's stuff like rating or some sort of rewards like titles and all that, you're going to have people that figure out what the best classes are. And that's in every MMO. Like you can load up any MMO and you can go on Google and find out, okay, what's the tier list for this MMO? What characters are the best? What classes are the best? What races are the best? And people are always going to gravitate to those more than anything else. And you could see that in games like Call of Duty, any game that has different options and different ways that you can play the game. There's always going to be something that's better than the other, and more people are going to gravitate to that one thing versus like, okay, I'm hunters or D tier, so I'm just not going to touch hunters, but there's still going to be people that play it. There just has to be a way to kind of allow everyone to enjoy it, and that's why I said like I think in order for MMOs to really be able to kind of pull back a lot of that casual gamers, they need to figure out a way to add some sort of horizontal gameplay loop. And I think World of Warcraft has been doing a good job at identifying what to add with like follower dungeons. You had like Mop Remix, you had Plunderstorm, you had stuff like that you can kind of enjoy no matter what throughout your entire experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's a kind of little awesome addition outside of just like raiding. Like your people that are going to raid no matter what. The people that want to do mythic raiding, heroic raiding, mythic dungeons, like they're still going to do that. And no matter what, there's always going to be a meta.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so while we're on the topic of MMOs, you just mentioned Plunderstorm and Mop Remix. So everybody has heard about Riot with their MMO, their MMORPG. So I didn't actually know this. Back in October, Riot hired a guy by the name of Orlando Salvatore as the chief engineer over this MMO, and he was actually a former Blizzard dev, and he was one of the main people who worked on the things like MOP Remix and Plunderstorm. And after seeing like how successful both of those modes were within WoW, I think bringing him on board is great. And it was kind of funny. So during the League Worlds Finals, the caster the finals had asked their stream chat, if they had any questions for Mark Merrill, who is there with him, and he's Riot's co-founder. And I guess the chat spammed MMO. So it's quite apparent that a lot of people want this to happen. And I didn't realize that there was that much hype for an MMO. Do you think that okay, especially with Arcane, with how the huge popularity and all the eyes that got brought to it, do you think now is the time that Riot really needs to hammer on this MMO and get it out there?
100%, because they have such an expansive world. There's so much lore behind every single character and every single race within Runeterra that for them to not really take advantage of this is almost a disservice to their organization. I think we saw something similar with Blizzard when during the hype of Warcraft and Diablo, they kind of decided to announce a World of Warcraft, and they had very similar hype behind this game just because people already loved Arthas. People loved the lore that kind of came with Warcraft. So you have now where Arcane is huge. Like the show itself is huge, and you have a lot of people that are wanting to go in and get to experience more of Arcane. And I just don't think League of Legends necessarily does the best job of giving people that ability to get any of that experience that they fell in love with Arcane. And I think an MMO is perfect because again, an MMO really provides you an unlimited gameplay loop. Like you can kind of do anything you want. If you want to go around farming for resources and building your professions, if you want to RP, again, there's so much that you can do with an MMO. I just think this is the perfect time for them to go about this way. Hiring Orlando is amazing because, like I said, it's having the ability to incorporate some sort of horizontal gameplay instead of just constantly, okay, you need to get gear, you do this content, then next season you're going to get more gear that's going to be completely out level this gear, and the old content just becomes irrelevant. I think that's what a lot of people really dislike with MMOs. It's like you spent so much time grinding these areas and getting levels and getting this stuff, and now all of a sudden the content that you really enjoyed, like say us going back to like Wrath or TBC or MOP, it just kind of becomes irrelevant for us. Like there's no reason for us to go back there.
Yeah. So I think like one of the big reasons why WoW is so popular and has been like the staple, of MMOs there is so much lore. Do you really think though, like in all honesty, like League has enough lore to really get you tied in with their characters? I mean, I know like again with Arcane, like there was I think dude there was such a fascination with like Jace and Caitlyn. I don't know how many games I played where like our ADC was Caitlyn, then our mid laner was playing Victor, then our top laner was playing Jace, and then our jungler was playing Vi, just because everybody's watching Arcane. Do you really think that there's enough lore to like keep you interested in playing an MMO based on it?
Oh, 100%. I mean, you have like 100 something characters. Each character has some sort of has lore tied behind them. Like I was watching a video earlier where they were talking just about the race that like Gnar and Timu are. I think it was Timu. I guess they're like a similar race, and kind of going deep into them and how they came from some underwater civilization and stuff like that. Like there's so much information in every single one of these characters and what these characters' personalities are. Like it's just unlimited for League. And right now it's like Riot is the biggest thing in the world, especially after Arcane. I just think it's a slam dunk for them. Like they have so much information out there. As long as they do something well, and it sounds like they're kind of picking up the people that are going to do a good job at this. And again, like we very rarely see Riot kind of miss with a game, and I think it's really good that they decided to kind of restart, and they were very open about that process and basically said, hey, we're stopping production. And you kind of saw them go dark for a couple months, and all of a sudden they're rehiring people. So it sounds like they kind of went back to the drawing board. They didn't enjoy they didn't like what they were doing, and they really kind of wanted to revamp everything. Yeah. Everything you're hearing from this sounds amazing. Like they want to innovate the MMO combat system. Like they want to do something different, something that's exciting. So I've been waiting for this since it was announced. I just think it's going to be.
It was announced back in 2022 or back in 2022.
Yeah, I've been super excited, and I can't wait. Like this is going to be one of those things where it's like as soon as it's out, whether it's early access or whatever, like I'm definitely going to jump into this and I'm going to try it, and I'm almost 100% sure I'm going to enjoy it.
See, I'm curious, like if there's going to be like how exactly they're going to do it, because you have all these different regions. You got Demacia, you got Bilgewater, Ionia, like, and then you got all these like races or the classes within there. It's like how I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know if they're going to have it similar to WoW, where you got your tanks, healers, damage. Like again, you got like Fizz, who is a fish. You got Garen, who's a human. I'm gonna call him a warrior. You got all these different kinds of classes and characters. Like do you think there's such thing as like over customization? Like I just don't know how they can tie all that in. Like how do you know, how are you going to be able to choose between all those different people? Like, you know what I mean?
I think they're going to have a set number of races and set number of factions, and I think Arcane did a really good job of kind of separating the factions where you have the people above ground and then the underworld. So maybe it'll be something like that where you have the underworld versus the above ground people, and kind of dictating it that way, where it's like, okay, you pick your race based on what faction you're choosing, and each faction has these different classes that you can play based on the race that you're choosing. And then kind of go from there. And like you said, there's so many different locales that they can kind of hit on, and just building the story from there to like an ultimate raid where you do something, whether it's attacking the other city or doing. I'm just super, super excited, and whatever they do, I'm sure it'll be great. Like I said, Riot has, they very rarely release like an unpolished version of a game, and I doubt they're going to start here with their MMO.
I think I'm overthinking it, where I'm like, okay, maybe I'll start into the game and I get to play as Misfortune or Garen. I wonder if it's just going to be like you're just going to have those, types of classes, the warrior or the whatever, and then you just customize it based on that, but you're not actually playing, as the champion.
Yeah, because if you think about it, like with World of Warcraft, like you have identifiable characters, but you're not playing as Arthas, you're not playing as Thrall, you're not playing as Jaina. You're playing a variant of what their classes are. And even then, in Classic, you weren't immediately presented with like a Death Knight or a Monk or a Necromancer per se, even though those classes have been in the Warcraft lore for a long time with like Diablo and Warcraft. It's not something that was present immediately, but as you kind of progress throughout the series, like they slowly kind of start integrating other different types of characters, like Demon Hunters. Like it was like 5-6 years ago, but you were kind of exposed to Demon Hunter back with Illidan like a long time ago, like predating World of Warcraft. So it's a thing. It's like they have so much that they can kind of pull into, and again, like they don't have to give you everything at once. It's fine if they give you just a couple choices in the beginning and give you different options to how those choices can play. Like if you're playing a warrior, you can decide if you want to go tank, et cetera, like brawlers, whatever, however you want to do it. And then obviously you have your different weapon choices, you have your different itemization. And League already does a really good job of like differentiating playstyles based on what items you're choosing. So I'm sure they're going to incorporate something like that, where like bringing some of those iconic League of Legends items and bringing them into the MMO, and that's going to change completely how you play. Like if you're playing a tank, you're going to have specific sets of boots. Like I don't know any of the League items outside of the ones that are in TFT. So
yeah,
but I'm sure they're going to do something like that's what I'm kind of expecting them to do, is like the items that you choose are going to change what kind of character you are. And I know there's like runes that you can select pre-game as well, right, with League, that kind of change how you play. So they'll probably incorporate something like that. Like there's so much that they can do, and it's super, super exciting.
So do you think if and when this MMO ever releases, do you think this could be the WoW killer?
Yeah, I think if anything, this is the one game that you kind of we're kind of looking at to see like what are they gonna do. Like I think every time an MMO has come out, not so much recently, but in like the previous like 10-15 years, like there was always this new MMO coming out that people were kind of touting as the WoW killer. This is finally the time that WoW is going to get dethroned as the biggest MMO, but it's impossible. Like we said, the lore and everything that has been built with the World of Warcraft universe is huge. It's insane. The game's been around forever. And when you have something as big as League that's been around for 15 years?
Yeah, long ass time.
Yeah, that's been around for a long time. You have characters that people are already like in love with. Like people love these characters.
Yeah, who's your favorite character from League?
I like Echo just because of when I played League.
You always talk about him, dude. Yeah.
He was when I first started playing League, he was like the first character that I saw that I was like, oh, this gameplay looks pretty cool. I like the way he played. I like the teleportation aspect of him and how he can kind of go back in time. I thought that was pretty cool. So he was always the character that I enjoyed playing the most. So
I would like to. Was out, you were like, oh yeah, by the way, my boy Echo's in there.
Yeah. even though it's like I don't play League, it's just something
and
that like
you need to. I told you a million times.
No.
Get into it, dude.
For me, it's just not the type of gameplay that I enjoy. I dislike
but you play click to move. You play freaking Lost Ark.
It's not necessarily the click to move that I dislike. It's the concept of the gameplay loop. There's so much that you need to know to be able to confidently play League. Like I was watching
but
Tyler
they got
One.
the recommended bind, dude.
No, it doesn't help. Like there's so much there's so much going on, and there's so many different things that you need to be able to learn, understand, to be able to play decently well. And it was funny because I was watching Tyler One the other day, and someone asked him like, "What would you recommend like a new League player to do?" And he was like, "Just lock in Garen and play like 100 games and learn the game, learn the items, and learn what different characters do, and that's how you'll learn." Because Garen is such an easy character that you can kind of start to you can understand his gameplay loop fairly easily.
I think that's why he's always been so good too, though. Is because he is, they have to make somebody good. It's easy to play for these newer players.
Yeah, he's simple, and you're able to pick him up relatively easily. The only thing after that is just kind of understanding the game. But again, it takes a lot of time and a lot of like dedication, and it's just not something that I would want to commit to now. Like I like the idea of being able to jump into a game that I already know, and like even if it's a new game, like I like the idea of jumping into a game that isn't relatively difficult at first, and like you're able to understand it.
It's not that difficult at first, bro. You just need to give it a try.
And to be fair, I think the biggest thing that I dislike is that when you're on the opposite side of the field, your camera flips.
Yeah,
that does suck, I hate that movement aspect of it.
Coming downward.
Yeah, and I hate the camera. I hate how the camera, you have to constantly shift your mouse. Like I don't like that portion of it. Like Lost Ark.
Are you talking about to get it to follow you?
Well, I know you can lock the camera onto your character, but I guess you don't want that because you want to be able to look around where you're at. But yeah, to get the camera to constantly follow you, like Lost Ark,
just like spacebar.
No. The camera in Lost Ark, it's always locked onto you. The click to move portion of it, like I don't mind. Like I love Lost Ark. I think Lost Ark.
Yeah, but Lost Ark, you don't have to look across the map and see what's coming on. What's going on. In League, you got a million things going on. Like, did you ever see that video? Not to interrupt you about Lost Ark, but did you see the video? Somebody took a video of Faker, and what his screen looked like, and he was just constantly he was looking at his own character for like such a small portion of the game, but the entire match, like he's constantly looking at top lane and bottom lane and his junglers because he plays mid lane who rotates, has to rotate around the map a lot. So like you don't even really like there's no way you could play like that kind of level and like keep a locked camera.
Yeah, I don't know. To me that's crazy. Like I've played MOBAs that I enjoy where you don't really have much of the ability to move around like that with your camera. Like and that's what I kind of enjoy. Again, it's an easier gameplay loop, and those are the types of games that I kind of tend to gravitate towards right now.
Yeah. So excuse me. So speaking of another MMO, you got this company, Artifical Core. Wow. There is a development studio, based out of Amsterdam, and they're working on a new MMO called Corepunk that I guess has been in the works for over 5 years now. And the game did just enter an early access period, with the game not even set to release yet until the end of 2025. Now, if you do want to hop into the early access, you have to pay a base price of like $36. And they got 4 different tiers ranging from that $36 all the way up to $68. Now, in my personal opinion, I think like for a game like this, especially an MMO, one that doesn't have a whole lot of popularity yet, really doesn't need to be putting almost a full priced price point on an early access game, especially when you do got games like Lost Ark and New World that are no, I don't think New World's free to play, but you have these free to play games in this space, and you shouldn't be, for an early access game, putting that price point. So did you get really a chance to kind of like look at like how the gameplay or anything like that? Or
I think the price point's fine. Like it's very similar to like when you're buying a brand new game. Like you're paying $36 for the base game, and then obviously you get more. I think it's cosmetics that you get if you pay the other options. Like I'm completely fine with the price point. It's not anything outrageous. $36, whatever, that's fine. I know they're giving out a lot of free codes as well. You just kind of have to either watch streams or have someone give you a code. So I'm completely fine with it. I saw a good amount of gameplay from different creators. I got a chance to play it. I actually have a buddy that ended up purchasing the game, and they enjoyed it. Like it's
really
different. It's like a lot of the people that I saw that played this game like really enjoyed it, because again and the developers have stated like this is not like your standard MMO. This is very much like a representation of your old school grindy MMO. Like you're earning your levels. Like people that played like 6-7 hours like barely hit level 10. Like that's how slow the gameplay aspect of this is. Very similar to like classic World of Warcraft, where you have to read your quest dialogue, otherwise you're not going to know where you're going. Like there's no markers.
You think that's a good thing?
I think this is what people want with MMOs. So like
hell no, dude. You think people want to be that long? Okay. You're talking about classic and hardcore. Like you even said yourself that the game isn't as enjoyable without the add-ons to tell you where to go and all that stuff like that. Especially like the map, it's not as like explory as like a WoW map is.
But that's what a lot of people miss from MMOs. They miss the idea of like having to actually explore the universe and figure out what you're supposed to be doing. Like now we're at a point in life and with games where everything is kind of handed to you on a platter. And this is, again, like they've very been outspoken about telling people like, this is what we're doing, and if this is not what you like, then this is not the game for you.
But do you think in a market, especially because MMOs definitely are not as popular as what they were, back in the early 2000s. You don't think that's only going to be a small niche amount of people playing the game?
I think the people, what really keeps people hooked onto a game is the progression aspect of it, especially with MMOs. Like you want to see that your character is getting stronger. You want to see that you're getting better. So I think if they do a good job with that, as long as your abilities are getting stronger and you feel like you're getting stronger, the end game is fun. Like the end game loop is fun. Like that's huge. Like if they can figure that portion of it out, then I think they'll be just fine. Like action RPGs are tough because it's kind of like a niche thing, especially when you kind of get into the weeds of things. Like healers in action RPG and action MMOs have always been weird because when you have to aim skill shots and your characters are constantly moving away from mechanics, being able to like aim a heal and like cast it at someone is difficult. So if they can figure out a way to make that portion of it easier or like more accessible without just having everything be like an AoE heal or a cone heal, I think that's going to be that'll be interesting. I would like to see how they do that.
Well, so like I was watching the footage of the gameplay, and it kind of looked like old school League of Legends. Like I don't know if you ever played it. You probably never played it back in the day, but like the health bars were above their heads. Like I just wonder, especially with Riot's MMO, like if these are going to be kind of similar, because it looked like again it's another point to click or a click to move game, and I just wonder like if Riot's MMO is going to be somewhat similar, and if this game puts it out before Riot. Do you think that that's going to kind of take any traction away from Riot, or do you think Riot still would, because it's a Riot game, everybody's going to flock to that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think Riot's going to really cannibalize a lot of the player base from all MMOs, not just this game. Like, I think, this game is very, very niche. It's more of your like hardcore MMO players that want to play this game and really enjoy the combat aspect of it. But again, like some of the MMOs that are like very big nowadays have that kind of grindy aspect that people really enjoy. Like Lost Ark is very similar, where it's like once you get to endgame, like the progression kind of almost comes to a halt, where you're having to kind of travel across different areas and grind different things just in order to kind of continuously progress. You have dailies that you have to do every single day, and if you're not doing your dailies, you can pay money out of pocket to kind of speed up that process as well. But I don't know, it's interesting to see, especially when when new companies come out and bring you something different. I think you want to see innovation in the game space that hasn't really seen innovation in a long time.
So I don't know if I'm gonna pick up this game. I don't know. I like I call them like a guardrail or like safety net when playing the game. Do you think that you're gonna be purchasing it?
I'm definitely interested in it. I'm keeping my eye out and seeing what they do. I don't necessarily think I'm going to try it on early access. The one thing that I dislike with MMOs when they do like long periods of early access is it kind of feels like you're just wasting your time in a sense. Like, I understand if they're giving the game out for like for people to test it and have people give their feedback and all that. But I think your general audience isn't really going to be able to provide that feedback like a big creator would.
Yeah.
But again, like the difficult thing, it's like if you spent hours playing this game and you level up your character and all of a sudden they go on release day and they're like, oh, your character is going to get deleted. So you just kind of feel like you wasted your time in a sense. Like that's the part for me that I don't really want to jump into this now. I'd rather wait and see what their plan is with these characters. Are they going to lock them in a specific realm that are just tied with people that were playing early access? Yeah. And now you can't play with other characters because you're so far ahead compared to these other players. That's the thing that I would like to see. I want to see what their plan is with that. I want to see if they're going to delete these characters, if you're just wasting your time. Like that's something that you never want to see with an MMO because people get attached to your characters. Like, you get attached to your character. You grind for loot, you grind for gear, you grind for levels, and you build your character the way you want it to look, the way you want it to feel and play. That for it to all of a sudden just be deleted and you have to restart is very unfortunate.
Yeah, and like with like Throne and Liberty, like I said, they did that same exact thing. They had the early access servers, and like I didn't really know any of that stuff when I first made my character. So like I had spent a few hours getting up to like level 30 or something like that. And then once you're like, oh, hey, I'm on this other server, and I'm like, well, shit, I just spent all this time leveling on here. I don't want to get rid of them, but I couldn't bring them over to your server. So like, you know, and again, the game's not releasing till at least it said hopefully end of 2025. So it's like, why would you have an early access, like you said, so far out from the game releasing? And then my big thing too is, I know you say the price point's not that big of a deal, but again, in a world where MMOs aren't as popular, I think by putting a price point on that, you're alienating a lot of players from considering even trying your game, meaning it's not going to gain a whole lot of traction. There's not going to be as many eyes on it unless, again, your favorite streamers are. But okay, if it was free, I went to download it today. I was gonna try it out, and I saw that price point, and I said, hell no, I'm not paying $36 for this. If it was free, you download it, bro. Don't even lie.
Well, if you think about it, almost every MMO has an entry point to play, especially when they don't have a subscription fee. Like, you're paying for an expansion, you're paying for certain DLC, stuff like that. Like, there's always going to be that price point that you need to pay to get into the game. Whether it's like Final Fantasy, you have to pay the game, and then I believe they have a subscription fee as well. Elder Scrolls Online, I think it's free to play now, but I believe you when it initially started, you would have to pay to play. A lot of MMOs, kind of as they've progressed and they've kind of realized like they're not getting as many players, they kind of go that free to play route. And maybe they do want to go the pay to play just so they get the players that want to play the game and want to provide good feedback to the developers so they can kind of continue to improve the game. Like, maybe that's why they want to go the pay to play option route for this game, or for this right now, just to get the players that really, really want to play it, really want to provide that feedback, and really let the developers kind of improve the base game and get it ready for release.
I don't even know if I would ever purchase it. Dude, I don't know. Like, again, looking at the gameplay, like, the graphics look just so old school, dude. I don't even know if I would play it if I was given a code. I think for a game that's going to be coming out in 2025, it's so old school looking.
But if you think about the MMOs that are still being played today, like, the most popular MMOs are very much like old school games. Like, World of Warcraft is probably the most updated MMO. And even then, it's like, the player base is split between like 4 or 5 different gameplay modes. Like you have people that aren't even touching retail, like they're playing classic WoW, or classic Season of Discovery, or classic Hardcore, or classic Cataclysm, classic TBC. Like there's so many different options that people are playing, and a lot of the player base probably isn't even on retail per se. Like they're probably on the older versions of it. Then you have games like RuneScape that probably have just as big of a player base as World of Warcraft, and the game looks like it was like it did when it initially came out. Like it looks like a game from the 1990s, and people love that game.
I wish WoW would put out their like a player activity count, you know, like how Steam has the charts and you can see how many people are like online. I'd love to see how many people are actually spread out amongst WoW, and if WoW Classic has more players in it than retail, you know, between all the different versions of Classic.
I think you can look online and look at like realm population, like and some of them are a bit like outdated. Like I don't think they have like up to date like player base. I think it only pulls data from when the characters are online, so it's a little bit skewed. But I know they said I think it was like back in like March where they released some information on how many subscribers they have. And there's around like 7.5 million. But 7.5 million, again, it's split between all the... Yeah, but it's split between all these different game modes. Like it's not 7.5 million players that are playing just retail. Like I guarantee you probably half, if not more than half, are probably not playing retail.
I maybe I could kind of agree to that with Vegas.
And you have,
considering how many versions of Classic there are,
and you have a lot of people that will purchase like a year subscription and then probably just not play the game. Like they'll play maybe a month or two and then just log off and not get back on until something else comes out. And I was one of those players for a long time where every time I would kind of get the bug, like the itch to come back and play. I would see that they're offering like a year subscription. I would pay for it, and then I would log off and not come back on for like 6-7 months. But I'm still counted as a subscriber, even though I'm not necessarily even touching the game.
Why not just subscribe when you can or when you want to play? I know you need a subscription for Classic, but
yeah, I mean it's like I think it ends up being like a lot cheaper if you subscribe for the year. And usually when they do the yearly yeah, but even then, when you do the yearly subscription thing, like you end up getting other stuff. So you get like mounts, you get stuff like that. For me, I'm not necessarily in monetary troubles. Like I have enough money to pay for the stuff that I want to pay for, and I have the extra money. So if I have the ability to do so, I will.
Just call me broke, why don't you?
I think that's the benefit of having a good career and being single and not really being tied down to anything. So that's the plus side of stuff like that. It's like I have extra money to do the stuff that I want to do, and if it's $100-something and it's fine. I'll just pay it and play it when I want.
So let me just to kind of wrap this one up with the amount of MMOs that have been released or talked about. Again, Riot. You got was it Path of Exile coming out? Do you think it's even smart really bringing an MMO into today's world? Like, I don't know if MMOs are, if there's ever a way to like rekindle that flame to it that it had, because I mean I feel like the game is targeted at the mid-20s to mid-40s players, and a lot of us don't have the time to really sink into the games. I mean, do you think that it's smart really doing MMOs now, or?
I think it's fine. Like, obviously, if the whole concept of making a video game is to make money, then MMOs probably isn't the best idea. I think the people that are making MMOs because they love MMOs. They love the idea of a game that will outlive its time, basically. Like World of Warcraft will always hold a special place for everyone that's ever played this game. Like I don't know anyone that played World of Warcraft for a month and then quit and never touched the game again. Like if you're playing this game, like you're playing it for years and years. And it's the same thing with every single MMO, from like RuneScape, Guild Wars, I'm like blanking on Lost Ark, even like other like solo MMOs like Genshin Impact. Like people that play these games play them for a very, very long time. And everyone has something that they thoroughly enjoy about these types of games that kind of keeps them coming back. Whether it's like they love the music, they love the lore, they love the adventure aspect of it, they love the simple things with like they love fishing, they love cooking, whatever it is that they like. And that's the thing that I think if you're bringing an MMO into the space, you have to figure out what it is you're bringing to the table. And like I talk about this game a lot with you specifically. Like I love Lost Ark. I think it is the best combat out of like any MMO I've ever played. I love it. It's so much fun. But I know nothing about the lore. Like I know nothing about the story, nothing about the world, like nothing about like anything outside of like this is the character that I play. Yeah. And I love the way the abilities look. I love the way the boss fights are, and it's just so enjoyable that like I know I can log on to Lost Ark and do a couple dungeon runs and I'm gonna have a blast. Like it's not something that I play consistently, but like whenever I download it and play it and like boot it up, like I'm gonna have a blast. I'm gonna have fun playing it. And I think that's what people kind of are looking for when it comes to like an MMO.
Yeah, and like what's funny too, like with me, dude, like I said, I've been playing WoW for forever. Like, I've still played games, like I said, like League and Fortnite and Call of Duty, but something like always just draws me back to WoW and to the whole MMO landscape. I don't know what it is.
I think it's a comfort thing too. It's like this is the game that you've been playing. Yeah, you've been playing this game forever, and I know we talked about it at depths with like Throne and Liberty and how confusing everything was with that game. And I was kind of trying to explain to you, I was like, if you talk about like any of the stuff that you have to do in World of Warcraft to someone that's never played this game, they're gonna look at you like they're dumb, like they're not gonna understand a single thing you're saying. But for us, it's something that's like super super simple because we've been doing it for so long, and that's why I said like it's the comfort thing. It's like you're just so you know how to do this. You know the zones, you know the worlds, you know the classes, you know the abilities. The abilities are iconic for us. So it's just always like you can go to another MMO and you're just always going to compare it to WoW. And it's one of those things that's like you're pitting the current moment to the memories that you have of World of Warcraft. Whether it's good memories or bad memories, like you're always going to compare whatever you're playing now to that.
WoW. Yeah.
And that's where it becomes difficult. It's like I think you have to look at it where it's like this is just one game and you're just looking at it as a solo game and find the things that you enjoy about this game. And if you have fun, you have fun. If you don't have fun, then move on to something else or move on to play something else. And that's also why it's so difficult for an MMO to succeed nowadays is I think in terms of like the amount of games that are available and require so much time, it's so hard to invest time into just one game unless it's just like so much better than everything else you're playing. Like I know people that have been playing Baldur's Gate since it came out and they will still go back and spend 60, 70 hours on a new gameplay because they want to try something else. Like, and this is a single player game that has an end it's hard for them to like wrap their head around like, okay, I need to go play something else. Why would I play this when I could just go back and play Baldur's Gate and have just as much fun? Or more fun.
Yeah, no, I guess that makes sense. So, do you have anything else you want to talk about these MMOs?
No, I'm good.
All right. So, some upcoming games. We talked a tiny bit there on Path of Exile. That's actually coming to early access here next week on the 6th on all platforms. Some games that you need to check out if you're looking for some things that are on sale that are fun to play. You got. Speaking of Baldur's Gate 3 is 20% off at $47.99. You got Cyberpunk 2077 is 55% off at $26.99. Warhammer 40K is 20% off at $47.99. You got Red Dead Redemption 2 is 67% off at $19.79, and you got Hogwarts Legacy is 70% off at $17.99. And that's it for today's episode of the BS Show. If you enjoyed the unfiltered conversations, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube at the BS Show GG. Also, don't forget to stay connected with us on X at the BS Show GG for all latest updates and more. Catch us on TikTok as well at the BSOGG. We appreciate you listening, and we'll be back next week with more straight talk.